Hello, dear friends of love and tears. Wherever you're watching from, maybe with a cup of tea curled up in bed, or hiding from the world for a little while, I'm so glad you're here. This story today is a gentle reminder that sometimes life plants seeds of connection when we least expect it. Funny thing, isn't it? How life can just slow to a crawl. That's where I was completely stalled out. My name's Marianne, and if you'd asked me half a year ago what my days were like, I probably would have let out a long sigh and said, predictable. Not bad, just quiet. Too quiet. You see, the kids had all grown and flown. God bless them. And Robert, my husband, my partner in all things, he'd been gone 5 years now. Our home, our sweet little cottage with the oversized garden, it suddenly felt cavernous, hollow. And the garden, oh, that garden was the cruelest part. It used to be our sanctuary. Robert and I spent hours out there, him fussing over his proud little vegetable rows, and me chasing color with roses and wild blooms. It had once been joy. And now, well, the weeds were winning. No matter how many times I cleared them, they always came back stronger, like they knew I didn't have it in me anymore. I'd stare out the kitchen window, heart sinking every time. That overgrown mess mirrored exactly how I felt inside. Tangled, abandoned, quietly aching. That's when Jamie stepped back into my life. He was Sharon and Bill's boy from across the street. I'd known him since he was all gangly limbs and scraped knees, catching fireflies barefoot in the summer twilight. He'd gone off to study engineering, I think. Smart boy. I'd barely seen him over the years, just flashes of him during Christmas or Easter. But this summer, Jamie was back home for a remote internship, helping his parents around the house. And so, there I was, one Saturday morning in late May, staring down the same devilish thistle I'd pulled 5 times already. The sun was relentless, I was grimy, overheated, and looked every bit the part of a woman losing a fight with her own backyard. That's when I heard it, a voice, polite and familiar. "Morning, Mrs. Lane." I straightened too fast, my back shouting in protest. There he was leaning casually on the fence coffee mug, in hand, that easy smile on his face. He looked different now. A man, not a boy. Leaner, taller than his dad. He carried himself with that quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't try too hard because it doesn't need to. "Oh, Jamie, good morning, dear," I said, trying to summon a brightness I didn't feel. Back home for a while, I asked, "Yeah, for the summer?" He replied with a smile. "Just soaking in the peace before Mom and Dad wake up and give me a list of chores." He chuckled, raising his mug in salute. His eyes drifted to my garden, my battlefield. I caught it, that brief flicker. Concern, sympathy. Whatever it was, he didn't say a word. Just polite small talk, catching up like good neighbors do. But as he turned to go, he hesitated. "Mrs. Lane," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "I've got some spare time in the afternoons. If you ever needed help in the garden..." I used to work on my grandpa's a lot. I kinda miss it. I was stunned. A young man this generation offering to help an old widow pull weeds. It felt like something out of a black and white movie. My first instinct, "Oh no, dear, I'm managing." A lie, of course. The thought of anyone seeing the garden's full horror up close, was almost too much to bear. But then I looked at his face. Kind, sincere. I glanced at the cursed thistle again. Why not? What did I have to lose other than my pride? Jamie, I said carefully, that's incredibly kind of you. Are you sure? I wouldn't want to impose. He gave a little shrug, smiling like it was nothing. Not imposing at all. Honestly, it'll get me away from the screen. And just like that, it was settled. He'd come by after lunch. I spent the next 2 hours fluttering about the house, in a daze, equal parts nervous and excited. I even tidied the potting shed. Why, who knows? Maybe out of habit or hope or both. At exactly 2 p.m., I heard a soft knock at the back gate. There he was, old t-shirt, worn jeans, gloves already on. "All right, Mrs. Lane," he said. Voice calm and ready. "Where should we start?" I exhaled. "Well, Jamie, take your pick." "It's all a bit tragic." He didn't flinch. Jamie simply nodded his gaze, drifting over the wilderness my backyard had become. His eyes settled on the overgrown patch near the old oak tree, and he pointed gently. "How about we start there? Clear that space out, and it might feel like we've actually won something." I laughed softly, but genuinely. He was right. That part of the yard had become a thicket of chaos. I'd given up on it years ago. It was an ambitious target, no doubt. But his quiet confidence, so steady and unshaken, was strangely contagious. We dug out an old, squeaky wheelbarrow from the shed, along with my backup set of tools, a rusted garden fork, some shears that hadn't seen daylight since before Robert passed. Tools that still held the imprint of old Saturday's hands side by side in the dirt. The first hour passed in silence. Not awkward, not strained. Just the rhythm of shared work, the scrape of metal, the occasional grunt, the hiss of weeds pulled from stubborn earth. The sun bore down mercilessly. My back reminded me I wasn't 30 anymore. But this time, something was different. I wasn't alone. Every time I paused to wipe my brow, I'd glance at Jamie, steady as ever. Sweat glistening on his forehead, never complaining. He worked with purpose, focused, patient. "Is this one a weed? Or something you're trying to keep, Mrs. Lane?" He'd ask from time to time, holding up a leafy thing. I'd squint at it sometimes, guessing, sometimes remembering. Most of it was a blur. But the way he asked gently, never judging, made it easier to admit I'd forgotten more than I remembered. We found our rhythm. He tackled the hard stuff, deep roots, thorny invaders. I followed behind, clearing the lighter debris, bagging the mess. And slowly, like an old secret being revealed, the earth underneath began to emerge. Rich, dark, breathing. It was a miracle in slow motion. I started to enjoy it. Truly enjoy it. Not just the garden, but the feeling of doing, of moving, of being part of something that had forward motion. The ache in my back wasn't despair anymore. It was effort. Honest, satisfying, earned. The silence too, it was different. Not the hollow quiet of loss and echoing hallways. It was warm. It was shared. It had presence. Jamie's hair was matted with sweat. By then his shirt clinging to him. But he kept going. And as I watched him, something inside me stirred something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. Not the kind that leaps and shouts, but the kind that tiptoes in soft and cautious, planting itself quietly in the corners of a heart that thought it was done growing. Our afternoons together became routine. 2 o'clock, like clockwork. After his internship ended, he'd show up gloves in hand. No fuss, no grand declarations. We didn't always speak. Sometimes the shears and the wind in the trees spoke for us. The snip of dead branches, the soft rustle of leaves underfoot, the satisfying thwack of weeds hitting the compost heap. But slowly, like the soil loosening under gentle hands, our conversations began to grow. It started with a plant. He pointed to one of Robert's old rose bushes, struggling under years of neglect. "What's this one called?" he asked. "Eleanor Gray," I said. "We planted her the spring our daughter was born." I smiled, surprised by the memory, like it had been hiding under a rock. Jamie listened, really listened. He didn't interrupt. He just kept pruning, nodding sometimes, furrowing his brow in that way he had when he was truly focused. He told me about his own memories, childhood summers on his grandfather's farm, learning to mend fences and drive a tractor before he could drive a car. He talked about his engineering projects, though I'll admit, half of it sounded like an alien language to me. But the passion in his voice that I understood, that's when I realized he wasn't helping me out of pity. He wanted to be there. He found peace in the garden the same way I used to, bringing order from chaos, seeing something broken and choosing to believe it could be whole again. One day, while we were digging out a knotted root that seemed determined to fight back, he said, "You know, this garden, it's kind of like a puzzle. Figuring out what stays, what goes, how everything fits together again. I'd never thought of it like that." But he was right. The transformation was slow, gentle, almost invisible at first. But then, patches of green began to peek through. Forgotten flowers I thought were long gone started pushing shyly toward the sun. Jamie saw potential where I saw loss. He'd point to a half-dead shrub and say, "Give it some love, maybe a little trim here, it might surprise you." And it did. Again and again. Even Robert's rose bushes, neglected, thorny, overwhelmed, started blooming again. Jamie worked his fingers around the roots, like he was coaxing life back into them. He found an old bottle of fish emulsion in the shed and used it like some kind of secret potion. And just like that, the scent of roses returned to the air. It hit me like a song I hadn't heard in years. Bittersweet. Beautiful. One afternoon, we took a break. The air smelled like cut grass and hope. We sat on the old wooden bench Robert had built years ago. Jamie sipped the lemonade I'd made, eyes closed, leaning back like he belonged there. And maybe he did. The sun was warm on our faces that afternoon, a soft, golden warmth that felt almost like a benediction. Above us, the leaves of the newly liberated oak tree whispered in the breeze, gentle forgiving. Jamie let out a slow breath as he looked over the yard we had slowly, lovingly reclaimed. "You know, Mrs. Lane," he said quietly, "this garden, it's got really good bones." My lips curved into a smile. That's exactly what Robert used to say. It was easier to speak his name when Jamie was around. He never filled the space with awkward sympathy or rushed condolences. He just listened, present and patient. He designed all of this. I added my eyes, tracing the curves of the pathways, the soft rise of the beds, every stone, every corner. He had an eye for beauty that I never quite appreciated until he was gone. Jamie nodded. "It feels peaceful here. Even when it was wild, you could feel it." That simple observation hit me deeper than he probably knew. He saw it. Not just the flowers or the mess. He saw the soul beneath the weeds. He saw what this place meant. As the weeks passed, our conversations, like the garden, began to deepen and bloom. Jamie talked about his future, his hopes, his uncertainties, the pressure of expectations, the fear of choosing wrong. I found myself sharing two things I hadn't spoken aloud in years. My dreams as a young woman, the messy, miraculous work of raising children, the strange silence of widowhood, and the ache of waking up in a house that had forgotten how to echo with laughter. But it never felt heavy. That was the magic of Jamie. He asked questions that invited, not demanded. He listened with gentle curiosity that made me want to speak. And in the telling, in the remembering, I felt a long, sleeping part of me stir. There was a shift inside me, so gradual it almost escaped notice. The house didn't feel quite so empty. I started looking forward to our afternoons, to the quiet companionship, to the shared chuckles when one of us nearly toppled over a rake, or the triumphant grin when a particularly stubborn root finally gave way with a glorious pop. I started baking again. Simple things, cookies, lemon bars, thumbprint jam biscuits, treats we'd nibble on the porch during lemonade breaks. And the way Jamie's eyes lit up with genuine delight at each offering, it made something soft and long forgotten come alive in me. I didn't even realize how much I'd changed until one evening my daughter Sarah called. "Mom," she said, "you sound different, happier." And she was right. This kind, quiet young man hadn't just helped me reclaim my overgrown yard. He'd helped me find a forgotten part of myself, the part that knew how to laugh, how to share, how to look forward to something. The most astonishing thing about it, there was no big event, no grand revelation, no dramatic turning point, just a quiet, steady blossoming. The slow miracle of connection, of healing disguised as digging. Then came what I now think of as the garden's true summer climax, the full bloom of Robert's prized climbing rose, New Dawn. When we first began, it had been a ghost of its former self, scraggly wilted, barely clinging to the trellis. Jamie and I had pruned it with reverent care, fed it, guided its tangled canes back into form. And now it was glory incarnate. A waterfall of pale pink petals, fragrant and full of life, tumbling over the weathered trellis like a joyful rebellion. We stood before it one golden evening, the sky dipping into honey tones. The air was thick with that sweet, spicy scent only roses carry. A scent that felt like memory and resurrection all at once. Wow, Jamie whispered, almost in awe. We actually did that. You, I said softly, you mostly did that. He shook his head, brushing the dirt off his gloves. No. It was a team effort, Mrs. Lane. You remembered where it needed help. You knew what it loved. He turned to me then with a smile that was steady and real. It's beautiful. Your husband, I think he'd be proud. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. But this time, they weren't the sharp, lonely kind. They were soft, full, grateful. Yes, I said, my voice catching. Yes, I think he would. We stood there for a while, just breathing it all in. And I knew in that moment it wasn't just about a rose. It wasn't even just about the garden. It was about connection. Jamie, who had once just been the boy next door, had become something so much more. A friend, a confidant, a partner in this quiet, sacred restoration. He hadn't just brought life back to the flower beds. He'd brought it back to me. The work was far from finished. Gardens are never truly done. But something inside me had shifted. The fog of grief that had dulled my days had lifted. In its place, a quiet joy was blooming. A renewed appreciation for the slow, beautiful labor of growth, both in the soil and in the soul. This unexpected friendship was a gift, more precious than any flower in the garden. And as August began to wane, so too did the long, golden days of summer. To be continued. Stay with us, dear friends of love and tears. Because sometimes life hands us a trowel and a second chance without warning, without ceremony. Just a quiet invitation to begin again. My neighbor's son came to help me with the garden, but in truth, he did far more than that. In turning over the soil, he turned over something inside me. In pruning old branches, he helped me let go of what no longer served me. And in planting seeds, he helped something new begin to grow in a heart I thought had long since gone fallow. He helped me find my way back to myself. And for that, quietly, completely, I will always be grateful. The seasons will turn, as they always do. Summer will fade into gold, then into frost, then into bloom again. But the lessons I learned that year and the quiet, extraordinary friendship that bloomed beside the roses, those will remain, a living reminder that even in grief growth is possible, that even in silence connection can take root, and that sometimes life gives us beauty, not in grand gestures, but in the steady hands of someone who simply shows up, a perennial gift, a garden of grace. Thank you for being with us, dear friends of love and tears. If this story stirred something in you, leave her in the comments so we know you're out there, still believing in second chances, still tending to your own garden of healing. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, take gentle care of yourself and of those quiet moments where hope is planted. With love, love, and tears.